Okay, let's continue with the Animorphs book series. We have reached book number 6, The Capture. So we have read through the first cycle of 5 books. So Jake, Rachel, Tobias, Cassie, Marco, and we've come all the way around to the next Jake book. I don't know if anybody needs or wants much in the way of a recap. I think Matt can probably fill you in if you do want to ask any questions. I I won't recap much of the premise because each and every book is sort of going to reintroduce you to the primary characters and to the Yeerk invasion of planet Earth. So I do feel like the 6th book got among the worst covers and both exterior and interior cover illustrations. So the tagline of this is "Now he's one of them," and fantastic interior, which I believe takes place in Cassie's barn, because why wouldn't it? Okay. Animorphs number 6, The Capture by Kay Applegate. The dedication, as always, to this point is for Michael. Thank you for the pun, Matt. Chapter 1. I'm Jake. Just Jake. You don't need to know my last name, and I can't tell you anyway. My story is full of small lies. I've changed people's names. I've changed the names of places. I've changed small details here and there. But the big stuff is true. All of it. The Yeerks are here. On Earth. That is true. The Yeerks have made controllers of many humans. They have inserted their gross, slug-like bodies into people's brains and made them into slaves. Controllers. That is true. Controllers are everywhere. My town, your town, everywhere. They can be anyone. The policeman on the corner, the teacher in your school, your best friend, your mother or father, your brother. I know because my brother, Tom, is one of them. Tom is a controller, a slave to the Yeerk in his head. If he knew who I really was, what I really was, he would have me killed or turned into a controller like him. But that's what my world is like now. A world where the enemy is everywhere, even sitting across from me at the breakfast table on a Saturday morning, which is when this part of the story begins. Hey midget, what's up? Tom asked as I sat down. And that's one of the things he calls me. Actually, I'm kind of big for my age, almost as big as Tom is. But it's a joke we've had for years. You know how it is. Not much, I said. What's up with you? Oh, I'm going to a meeting. The sharing? I asked, trying to sound casual. The sharing is this group that tries to pretend like it's some kind of combined Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. It's really a friend organization for the controllers. The leadership council of the sharing is made up of high ranking controllers. Yeah, we're doing some cleanup in the park. You know, do our part for the community and all. Then we're having a barbecue afterward. He gave me a serious look. You really should join, you know. We'd get to spend more time together. I felt a wave of sickness. I tried not to show it. It wasn't Tom talking. It was the Yeerk in his head. The Yeerk who wanted to take my body and use it as a host for one of his fellow slugs. As I sat there, across the table from him, I was trying to decide something. I was trying to decide whether I would ever have to destroy him. Destroy my brother, who was not my brother. Not anymore. Maybe I will join someday, I said. Like when hell freezes over, I added silently. I poured myself some Wheaties and milk. So you'll be out for a while? All morning. Mom and Dad are out playing. All morning. Mom and Dad are out playing tennis, so you'll have the house to yourself. Throw a party. Uh-huh, I said, and spooned up some cereal. It was hard not to just yell at him, to let him know that I knew to let him know that I knew all about him, what he was doing. At least some of what he was doing. I had been spying on my brother. He was rising fast in the leadership ranks of the sharing. He was a very loyal controller. The Yerk in his head had been promoted, and he was involved in some new plan, a very big new plan. A plan I had to stop, even if. Well, take it easy, midget, Tom said, sounding just like he'd always sounded. You too. I waited until Tom was gone. I was alone. It was time. I went through the house, room by room, making sure no one was there. Then I got the little matchbox I'd hidden in my desk drawer. I could hear. Sorry. Then I got the little matchbox I had hidden in my desk drawer. I could hear a scrabbling noise coming from inside. I slid the matchbox open. I shuddered. It was a nice big cockroach, brown and glossy and about an inch long. Its antennae waved eagerly. The roach tried to force its way out of the box, but I held my hand over it. I could feel the roach antennae tickling the bottom of my palm. It was pushing, trying to get away. I focused on the roach, thought about it, pictured it. The roach stopped moving and lay still. Not dead, just quiet. The way animals always get when you acquire them. I slid 2 fingers into the box to. Sorry. This book, my collection of Animorph books have been living in a Rubbermaid tub in the basement of my parents' house for a few years, and when I tracked that a little bit, there was a little dust cloud. Sorry, you probably couldn't see it on the screen, but I could smell it, and it, yeah. I slid 2 fingers into the box to get a better contact with the roach. It felt hard and dry. I shuddered. There's a paragraph. I absorbed the cockroach's DNA pattern. It was becoming part of me. The DNA, the genetic pattern of many animals, was a part of me now. Tiger, dolphin, flea, falcon, trout, green anole lizard. I have the power to morph, to become any animal that I can touch. The power was given to us, to me and my friends, by an Andalite prince moments before he was murdered by the Yerks. I have flown through the sky on my own outstretched wings at more than 100 miles an hour. I've been a dolphin locked in deadly battle with sharks. I have felt the awesome power of the tiger and experienced the terrible loss of self, the emptiness and horror of becoming an ant. It was the gift of the dying Andalite, a powerful weapon for us to use in resisting the Yerks. It was also a dangerous, deadly curse, like any weapon, I guess. And now I was preparing to become a cockroach. It would be it would be an ideal way to infiltrate the Sharing's new headquarters building. The leadership meeting was in a couple of days. I wanted to be there, but the Yerks had grown cautious lately. They knew we were out there. They believed, wrongly, that we were a group of Andalite warriors. But they knew that morph-capable enemies were hunting them, opposing them, hurting them, sometimes hurting them very badly. Tom, my brother? Could I destroy my own brother? You don't have to make that decision yet, I said aloud. All you have to do now is try out this roach morph. All I had to do now was become a cockroach. Pardon me, my leggings are bothering me. They're new leggings. I have to break them in, I guess. Oh, but they have a tiger from the. Yeah, sorry. They're my new leggings that I'm very pleased with. Yeah. Okay, sorry about the new leggings induced interlude. Chapter 2. Cockroaches are not my favorite animals, but I knew a cockroach would be ideal for penetrating a guarded building. Roaches can go anywhere. You may have noticed that fact. I put my dog, Homer, out in the yard. I closed the curtains in my bedroom, making it as dark as possible. Oh man, the things I do with my spare time, I muttered. I thought of calling Marco and asking him to come over. Marco is my best friend. He's the one who actually came up with the word animorph. No, I said, do this one yourself. The others were all tired. We'd had a rough time lately. Too many close calls. We needed a rest. We needed time to deal with normal stuff, like school. Our grades had been suffering since we'd become animorphs. Besides, this had to be my decision. Tom was my brother. I took a deep breath. I braced myself. I took another deep breath. Okay, Jake, I said. Let's do this. The first mistake I made was standing in front of a full-length mirror. It was dark in the room, but there was still enough light for me to see the changes. Big mistake. Morphing is never pretty. It is always unpredictable. In fact, if you saw it happening and didn't know what was going on, you'd end up screaming for about 2 weeks straight. The first feeling was of shrinking, which is a sensation exactly like falling. Like you're falling forever. I watched myself shrink in the mirror. It didn't look as bad in the mirror as it felt. But what really did look bad was my skin, as it began to be covered by an armor plate of brown cockroach shell. Brown cockroach shell. Oh! I yelped in surprise. My fingers melted together and formed a single many-jointed bug leg. Antennae jumped out of my forehead. They seemed to stick out forever. Then curl back, like they were being blown by a wind. My waist was squeezed, and the lower part of my body swelled, forming a swollen insect abdomen. Swollen and brownish yellow with ripples, sort of like the Michelin Man. Then, when I was about a foot tall, I felt the last of my bones dissolve. I could actually hear it happening. My spine had been grinding as it shrank. Then, suddenly, I heard a squishy sound as all my internal organs lost their bone support. My skull melted away. My skull melted away. It was the last sound I heard clearly as my ears and human sense of hearing faded. I was a bag of loose guts, almost deaf, half blind, as my human eyes shrank and the lenses became distorted. My exoskeleton got harder and stiffer and stronger. My wings, glossy and crisp, covered my back. They overlapped at the edges, like the metal plates of a suit of armor. Extra legs suddenly sprouted from my chest, only it wasn't exactly a chest anymore. I was a stunted 6-inch long bug with a few disintegrating strands of brown hair and shrunken but still somewhat human eyes. Not attractive, not even slightly. Then I lost my eyes. It took a second to even realize that I could still see. Then, oh, yes, I could see, but not the way I saw with human eyes. A weird, wavy mountain seemed to wrap all around me, my clothes. They looked different, blue and green and gray, kind of. It's hard to describe exactly. I couldn't see very far, just a few feet, and what I could see was shattered into dozens of little images. I saw little bits of vast fibrous walls, my socks, and dark tunnels. Made of thick slabs of what could have almost been wavy corrugated concrete, the legs of my jeans. The fibers of the carpet looked gray-green to me and as big as ropes. My hairy jointed roach legs would my hairy jointed roach legs would catch in the fibers as I tried to move. I felt the roach brain surfacing. I'd been through it before. It's different each time, depending on the animal. Sometimes it's a bunch of raw energy and fear that takes over your own mind, so you think you're going crazy. But not the roach brain. I didn't feel great hunger. I didn't feel great fear. The roach was calm, confident, unworried. I laughed. I mean, in my head, I laughed because I no longer had a mouth or a throat or anything at all that would make a laugh. I was so tensed up. I was so tensed up expecting the cockroach to be a bundle of energy and fear, but mostly it just felt like resting. The roach brain wanted to take a nap. Cool, I thought. It's gross. It's disgusting. Marco and the others will hate the idea, but when I tell them how easy it is to handle vibration. Get ready. Get ready. What was it? Get ready. Light, light, light. Chapter 3. Run. Run from the light. Imagine being in one of those sorry. Imagine being in one of those car races at the Indianapolis 500. Now imagine that instead of sitting in one, you are strapped face down underneath one. Your nose is about a tenth of an inch from the road surface and you're going 180 miles an hour. That's what it was like when I ran. My ro- my roach legs my roach legs powered like something from a Roadrunner cartoon. I blew out from under the folds of my own clothing. I blew across the carpet. I was rocket propelled. Someone had put the light on in my room, and when that light came on, my roach brain stopped being calm and relaxed. Zoom! 3 miles an hour. That's very fast when you're only an inch long. Vibration, vibration, vibration. Heavy steps rattled on the floor. Heavy steps rattled on the floor. They vibrated up through my legs. My tiny roach brain knew what they meant. Something very, very big was walking around, chasing me. Run! Zoom! Across the carpet. Suddenly, a wall. Up, left, right, which way? Vibration, vibration, vibration. Wait, a crack. It wasn't much of a crack, just enough space to slip a quarter through. No way I could fit. Or could I? My underside scraped the floor. Hmm. Ah. My underside scraped the floor. My hard brown wind cover scraped the bottom of the baseboard. But I barely had to slow down. I was in the wall. Ha! The the big things that rattled the floor would never catch me now. I was safe here. A nail as thick as a tree trunk stuck up from the wood. I went around it. On either side of me, I saw bright, straight lines of light that seemed to go on forever. These were the cracks beneath the baseboards. To one side, hmm? Sorry, I got confused because I thought he was still in his bedroom. And it says, to one side, a thick, shiny slab with irregular edges intruded into the wall, the edge of the kitchen linoleum. High above, I could see other lights, more circular and dimmer. These were the holes where pipes entered the wall. Ah, something moving, close by. Oh, gross, a cockroach. Get a grip, Jake, I told myself. You're a cockroach, too. But still, you just don't want to be face to face with a roach as big as you are. I mean, he was right at eye level. The other roach's antennae felt me, sweeping over me, tangling briefly with my antennae. We said hi. At least, we said the roach version of hi, which wasn't really hello. It was more like, oh, you're a roach too. Now, in the darkness inside the wall, I felt calmer. The electric fear was gone. The electric fear was gone. The suddenness of the light had been the problem. That and the vibration. I could still feel the vibrations, but they were different now, further away. Okay, I'd had enough of being a roach. It was time to get someplace safe, demorph, and find out who had been in my room. Why was someone in my room? A few minutes earlier, and they would have caught me in mid-morph. Stupid of me. Stupid, stupid. Where could I go to demorph? The garage? Yes, the garage. There weren't any mirrors, and I sure didn't want to watch myself morph again. Through the kitchen, out under the back door. That was the way. I went to the bright crack ahead of me, the kitchen. I scampered up on the ledge of linoleum. I stuck my head and antennae out beneath the baseboard. The vibrations were all far away, in some other room. I emerged from the crack. Over my head was an incredibly high canyon. It went up and up, far higher than I could see. Two parallel walls, just a few body lengths apart. Of course, the refrigerator. I was behind the refrigerator. One side of the canyon was the kitchen wall. The other side was the back of the refrigerator. Someone really should sweep back here. There were dust bunnies the size of couches. But no problem. I was getting the hang of it now. Follow the baseboard to the next wall, turn right, and then there would be the door. No problem. I was in charge. Some big barn-like structure was ahead of me. It looked like one of those old-fashioned covered bridges. Huh. Probably an old Probably an old matchbox. I went in, trotting along on my six-jointed legs. Wait, I wasn't moving anymore. What the... I tried to run. I was stuck. I tried again. One leg was free, but the others were frozen in place. What was... I felt around with my antennae. Now my antennae were stuck. I couldn't move. I couldn't move at all. I was trapped. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. So, Rachel demanded, what was it? How did you get trapped? I'll bet I know, Marco said, grinning sardonically, which is the only way he knows how to grin. Jake checked in, but he couldn't check out. I nodded. Roach Motel. I walked into a stupid roach motel. I ran right into the sticky paper, and man, I could not move. Very frustrating. You could do commercials for the Roach Motel Company, Marco suggested. Take it from me, Roach Boy. These things really work. It was later in the day, and we were in Cassie's barn. Rachel, Marco, Tobias, Cassie, and me. As usual, the place was filled with wire cages, and the cages were filled with animals. Rabbits, foxes, baby deer, eagles, opossums, mourning doves, all of them injured or sick. Some of them feisty and about ready to be released. We were lounging around on bales of hay and piles of feed sacks, all except Tobias, who was up in the rafters high overhead, and Cassie, who was feeding some of the animals. Everyone seemed to think my roach experience was funny. Except for Cassie. Cassie was the only one not smiling. She was giving me a very disapproving look. Jake, you of all people should know better. She was right. I knew she was right, but that just made me stubborn. Look, I was just trying out the morph to see if it would be good for us to use. Cassie totally did not buy my argument. She put down the bucket she was carrying. She put down the bucket she was carrying and took off her heavy work gloves. She came over and stood about a foot from me. Then she stuck her finger in my face. Uh-oh, Marco said in a loud whisper. Jake's in trouble. Big time, Rachel agreed. Jake, Cassie said, don't ever do that again. Now, you are sort of the one in charge, but I'm telling you, don't ever do that again. Don't ever try some new morph without one of us there. Do you understand? Cassie, I was just no. Don't tell me what you were just. Don't ever do that again. Jake, I I think this is the point where you just say yes, ma'am, Tobias said, in thought speak that comes with being in a morph. I hung my head. Okay, Cassie, I'm sorry. Rachel whistled appreciatively. It's a new, tougher Cassie. I approve. I remember when she used to be so sweet, Marco said. Marco said. I didn't know her voice could even sound like that. Plus, look, she now comes with a kung fu grip. Cassie ignored them. Instead, instead, she gave me a private look, just between the two of us. I knew what the look meant. It meant, I care about you, so don't be dumb. And the look I sent her meant, I know, I care about you too. Okay, I realize it sounds corny, but give me a break. We'd been through a lot. Cassie and I. All of us. We'd grown pretty close. To me, Cassie is an amazing person. For one thing, she handles all kinds of responsibility. Her barn is actually the wildlife rehabilitation clinic. Her parents are both veterinarians, and her dad runs the clinic as a way to help injured wild animals. Everything from seagulls to skunks. And Cassie helps with all the work, except for doing surgery. But I'll bet she could do that too. As for how she looks, well, she's very pretty. Kind of short. She only comes up to my chin, but then I'm fairly tall. Sorry. But she's not one of those wimpy looking short girls, you know? I do not know. I'm sorry. She's not one of those wimpy looking short girls, you know? Not not all prissy. She's strong looking. Mostly when I picture Cassie, I think of her wearing overalls and boots because of working in the barn so much. I guess most guys would say Rachel is prettier. Personally, I don't think of her that way because she's my cousin. But Rachel does look like some kind of blonde supermodel. Not that Rachel acts like Miss Fashion, just the opposite. If there's danger, Rachel is right there, usually a few steps ahead of anyone else. Marco says Rachel's enjoying it all, that she's actually glad about all that's happened in our lives since that night when we saw the Andalites' damaged spaceship. La- eh. She's actually glad about all that's happened in our lives since that night when we saw the Andalites' damaged spaceship land in an abandoned construction site. Marco refers to Rachel as Xena, warrior princess. But that's Marco. For him, everything is a joke, except for his family, or what's left of it. Marco is small, with dark eyes and long dark brown hair. Sorry. Cassie says a lot of the girls at school think he's cute. I wouldn't know. Most of the time, Marco and I totally do not get along. He says I'm too serious. Personally, I think he's just a little too immature sometimes. We disagree about everything. He actually tries to tell me that college hoops are better than the NBA. Yeah, right. Please. But what are you going to do with a guy like that? We get on each other's nerves a lot of the time. We're also best friends and have been since we were babies. I would do almost anything for Marco, and he would do the same for me. Of course, he'd complain the whole time. Oh man, can that guy complain when he wants to? The last member of our original group is Tobias. Tobias used to be this kind of sweet guy with wild blonde hair. Sorry. A sweet guy with wild blonde hair. A dreamy sort of person with a really terrible home life. Used to be. I glanced up at him. He was perched on a rafter overhead. He was preening his wing feathers, carefully combing them out with his beak. It's an amazing beak. It has a wicked, cruel-looking hook at the end, the better to tear open mice and rats and other small animals he eats. Tobias is a red-tailed hawk. I guess maybe he will always be a red-tailed hawk. See, there's one problem with morphing, a time limit of 2 hours. If you stay in morph more than 2 hours, you stay forever. Which is why Rachel asked me, "So, what's the rest of the story? How did you get out of the Roach Motel before the time was up? I noticed you are human again." "More or less," Marco added. I shrugged. "Well, I sat there for a while, trying to squirm out, but that didn't work. I was stuck good." Sorry. I was stuck good, but that was okay, because as I sat there, I realized I could start to make sense of some of the vibrations I was hearing. Some of it was sound, people speaking. "What people?" Marco asked. "My parents. My dad had twisted his ankle playing tennis, which is why they'd come home early. Which is why they'd come home early. They were the ones who'd gone into my room, looking for the ace bandage I have in my drawer. They were the ones who turned on the light. Anyway, what could I do? I I wasn't about to get stuck in roach morph, and I could tell my parents were up in their bedroom. So I demorphed." "Wait, weren't you behind the refrigerator?" Tobias asked in thought speak. "Yeah, and it was very tight. But as I grew, I could push the refrigerator out an inch at a time. Still, still, I thought I was going to suffocate back there. Ju- and then, just as I was getting human again, my mom walks in." That made them all lean forward. "What?" Cassie demanded. "Your mom? What did she see? What did she say?" Well, all she could see was my head. It was normal, fortunately. And what she asked me was, "Jake, why are you back there? And what?" Sorry. "Jake, why are you back there? And while we're at it, do you want to tell me why you have the top of a roach motel stuck in your hair?" Everyone got a good laugh out of that image. Marco was the first to stop laughing. He was looking at me kind of sideways, the way he does when he thinks I'm hiding something. "Very funny and all, Jake," Marco said. "But you haven't told us why you were morphing a roach. And don't give me that 'I was just trying it out' routine." I stopped laughing. Sooner or later, I would have to tell them. I'd have to tell them everything. "Okay, look, I've learned something. For one thing, Tom is getting more important to the Yerks. I think now he's just below Chapman as a controller." Rachel gave a low whistle. "Chapman is our assistant principal at school. He's also the most important controller we know about." "Tom is careful about not letting my parents or me overhear anything suspicious," I said. "But he does make phone calls using our phone sometimes. I've been checking the sorry. I've been checking the automatic redial when he's done, so I know some of the people he's been calling." Hmm. Marco laughed. "Cool. Jake the super spy. Nice trick." "And who is Tom calling?" Tobias asked. "Doctors. 5 different doctors. I looked them up in the phone book. Hmm. They all practice at the same hospital, the same wing of the same hospital, at something called the Berman Clinic. Berman is one of the doctors Tom calls." It took a few minutes for the facts to sink in. "Wait a minute," Rachel said. "Are you saying the Yerks are running that hospital? Or at least a part of that hospital? Why would they want a hospital?" I hesitated before answering. I wasn't sure my guess was right. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But Marco, who could teach a class in paranoia, had already figured it out, of course. "Oh man, they're going to use the hospital to infest host bodies." So, yeah. Oh man, they're gonna use the hospital to infest host bodies. You check in to have your tonsils out or to have a cast put on your broken arm. You check out as a controller. Chapter 5. Tom came home late that evening. He smelled like wood smoke and barbecue sauce. My mom and dad and I were already at the table eating dinner. My dad had his injured ankle resting on a stool. We were having broiled chicken and potato and vegetables. As he walked in through the kitchen door, my mom said, "Tom, how was the big cleanup? They showed some of it on the news." Tom came into the dining room and took a chair across from me. It was okay. We it was okay. We filled two dumpsters full of garbage and dead branches and stuff. Hey, what happened to your leg, old man? My dad winced. I tried for a shot I shouldn't have tried for. Twisted it. Did you have enough to eat? My mom asked Tom. Tom patted his stomach. Burgers and dogs and chicken, not as good as your chicken, of course. Actually, your father cooked. He cooked by calling Gourmet Express and having it delivered. But I did microwave the sauce, my dad said. That counts as cooking. Tom winked at my dad. Sorry. Tom winked at my dad. Well, the stuff at the barbecue had to be better than Dad's chicken. Good thing I ate there. Sorry. Just for that, you get no dessert, my dad said. And it's cheesecake from Santorini's. Ooh, Santorini's, Tom groaned. I take it back. I apologize. I grovel. I beg. I love Santorini's. Homer came in, sensing it was time for table scraps. Hey, Homer, Tom said. He scratched him behind the ears, and Homer got his happy moron look, the look where his eyes glaze over and his tongue lolls out of his mouth. A totally normal scene, around a totally normal dinner table. No one would have ever guessed the truth. In my brother's head was an alien, a creature from another planet. I asked Axe about how it works. Axe is the Andalite we rescued from the bottom of the ocean. He's one of us now, I guess. Anyway, I asked Axe about how the Yerk slug lives in a person's head. He'd explained it to me, how they can flatten their slug-like bodies. How they can flatten their slug-like bodies, how they can sink between the crevices and cracks of a person's brain, how they melt. They melt like a liquid into every available space, how they wrap their bodies around a brain. How they wrap their bodies around a brain and attach their own neurons to human neurons. Tom must have noticed me staring at him. What's your malfunction? I snapped out of my daze. What? Oh, nothing. I was just thinking of something. You're staring at me. You're staring at my forehead. I forced a laugh. My mind raced to think of a joke. Really? I thought I was just staring blankly into empty space. But then again, empty space, your head, what's the difference? It worked. Tom snatched up a dinner roll and chucked it at me. I caught it in midair, a split second before it would have hit my face. For a moment, we just glared at each other. Don't throw food, my dad said. It's undignified. It's okay, I said. It's okay, I said. Tom's not fast enough to hit me anymore. He's slowed down, lost his touch. Tom raised an eyebrow. Don't push it, midget. I smiled. It was a fake smile, but it was the best I could do. You used to be faster when you were still on the basketball team. I guess hanging out at the sharing all the time, eating barbecue and potato salad, must have slowed your reflexes. You know, in the old days, Tom would not have put up with that. He would not have let me challenge him and get away with it. He would have had me in a headlock and given me a massive noogie until I begged for mercy. But now he just gave me a cold, uncertain smile. Maybe it was because he had changed. Maybe it was because I had changed. The silence stretched between us for a few minutes, and my parents. Sorry. The silence stretched between us for a few minutes, and my parents, feeling uncomfortable, made small talk. I have homework to do, I said at last. May I be excused? Come back down for cheesecake later, my mom said. Tom caught up to me at the stairs. I don't know why you're so against the sharing, he said. A lot of the kids in your school have joined. I guess I just don't like to join things. Yeah, well, don't dump on what you don't understand. Sorry. Yeah, well, just don't dump on what you don't understand. What were you doing that was so important today? Well, I was out cleaning up the park. I stopped and turned to face him. I was one step higher than he was, so we were eye to eye. Me? I wasn't doing much of anything, hanging out with Marco. Your loss, he said. Sorry, your loss, he said. There are a lot of things that are a lot cooler than hanging out with Marco. Cooler than being on some bogus team. Important things. You could be a part of something bigger. You could be a part of something great, not just another nothing kid. He gave me a look, like he could tell me incredible things, like he could open up a whole new world for me. I could be part of something bigger, something important. I knew that kind of stuff works on some people. That was the first step toward becoming a voluntary host. That was how the sharing started out. Talk of bigger, more glorious, more interesting things that you could be a part of. Part of. Thanks, Tom, I said, but I don't want to be a part. I I don't want to be a part. I guess I'd rather just be one person, on my own, one little nothing kid. For a split second after for a split second after I said that, he let the mask slip. For just a moment, I saw an expression of pure arrogance and contempt. Yerk arrogance, yerk contempt. The look said, "We will have you, sooner or later, you and the rest of your weak race." Then it was gone, and Tom was shrugging like it was all no big deal. I went to my room. I did do some homework. Later, I went back downstairs and ate cheesecake along with my folks and my brother. One big happy family watching TV and pigging out. That night, I had the dream, a dream that had begun to appear almost every night. I don't know, I guess I should probably do one more tonight. Chapter 6. I can't believe we're actually going to practice some more, Marco said. We never practice. We just do it. And when it's a huge disaster, we try and deal with it then. We need the practice, I pointed out. We're going in as spies. Sorry. We're going in as spies. We're going to this thing to try to hear what they're saying. And it takes a while to learn how to use the cockroach's senses, to understand sound. This would be a great horror movie. Or at least a book, Marco said. Roach Man. We were in Marco's new apartment. It was the first time we'd ever used it. Probably. Sorry. Ugh. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't do another chapter. But no, I've started it now. I can do this, right? We were in Marco's new apartment. It was the first time we'd ever used it. Probably because now that Marco's dad was back at work, they had moved to a better place. I guess Marco used to be embarrassed over his own place. In fact, his dad was out, working late at his new job. I hoped the job would last. Marco had been carrying a big load of family problems for a long time. Is it possible to die of total willies? Bless you, the 90s. Is it possible to die of total willies? Cassie asked. I mean, do you think we could someday just gross ourselves right out of existence? I didn't even like touching a cockroach. How am I going to stand becoming one? Just don't be near a mirror, I suggested, and don't look at each other while you're morphing. Are these creatures frightening to humans? Axe wondered. It's amazing how quickly we'd all gotten used to the fact that this guy from another planet was with us. Hmm. I barely even thought about the fact that an Andalite was standing there, looking like a cross between a blue deer, a mouthless human, and a goat with eyes on the end of its horns, and a scorpion. The scorpion part is the Andalite's tail. It has a curved scythe blade on the end. The Andalites can whip that tail forward so fast you don't even see it move. I sat on the edge of Marco's bed. Tobias perched just inside the window, looking fierce and angry, although, of course, he wasn't. Speaking of odd things I was getting used to, I mean, I was there with an alien, my cousin, my best friend, and Cassie, and they were all getting ready to become roaches, except for Tobias. And the weirdest thing of all was that it didn't seem weird anymore. I watched as they all began to morph. I looked away when it began to get disgusting. When I looked again, there were 4 cockroaches on the carpet. Okay, Marco thought spoke to me. We're bugs. We're bugs. Let's get this over with, because I have to tell you, I have a major urge to step on myself. Okay, I said. Can you guys hear me? Go ahead. We're ready. Say something. Marco thought spoke. I couldn't tell which roach was him. All roaches look alike. Hello, I said loudly. Wait, I felt something, Cassie said. Tobias, can you tell them that was me? That was Jake, Tobias translated into thought speak. He said hello. Okay, Jake, do it again. Say hello again, Marco instructed. Hello. Yeah, I felt some vibrations there, Rachel confirmed. Hello. That sounded like hello, Cassie said. Jake, Marco said, say, I'm a huge dork. I'll see if I can understand it. You're a huge dork. Very funny, Marco said. I couldn't actually hear what you said, but I know you. We spent about an hour with Marco, Cassie, Rachel, and Axe learning to translate vibration into human speech. Oh, pardon me. I was doing so well for a while tonight. We spent about an hour with Marco, Cassie, Rachel, and Axe learning to translate vibration into human speech. They were repeating the learning process I'd done while I was stuck in a roach motel behind my refrigerator. When they demorphed, I looked away again. My dreams had been weird enough lately. I didn't need any help having nightmares. Cassie is the best morpher in our group, even better than Axe, who is the Andalite after all. Usually, she can kind of control the process a little. Once, when we were morphing birds, she managed to turn totally human except for keeping huge bird wings for a few seconds. It was really cool. But even Cassie couldn't do anything to make a cockroach morph attractive. It was disgusting. Flat out disgusting. You have such wonderful animals on this planet. Axe said when he had returned to his normal form. Not that his normal form looked very normal, standing there in Marco's bedroom. Cockroaches are not wonderful, Rachel said, shuddering a little. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't like those bodies. They're easy to handle, though, Marco said, not like ants. We all exchanged a look. We'd had a very bad experience with ants. That was one more if no one was going to be repeating. You know, guys, this mission doesn't really require all of us to go, I said. Look, I just said roaches are disgusting, Rachel protested. I didn't say I didn't want to do it. I didn't say I didn't want to do it. We need to know what's going on with that hospital. The best way to do that is to crash this leadership meeting of the sharing. And the best way to do that is with roach morphs. End of discussion. She looked around belligerently, like she was daring anyone to disagree. Yeah, but I can do it alone, I said. What's going on with you? Rachel asked. You What's going on with you? Rachel asked. You know we're the five musketeers. One for all, and all for one. 6 musketeers now, she corrected, looking at Axe. What are musketeers? Axe asked. No one answered him. They were all just looking at me like I'd done something wrong. Normally I'd be all for staying out of trouble, Marco said, but I'm just curious about why you're acting this way. It makes sense. One of us can go it alone. Are you worried about Tom getting hurt? Cassie asked. Count on Cassie to figure it out. I looked down at the ground. Look, he is my brother. You guys are my friends. What if we get into it and it comes down to a fight? Marco raised his eyebrows thoughtfully. He understood. We don't hurt Tom. That's the first thing. It's not that simple, I said. He's involved in this big time. He's one of them, and he would. Look, he would kill any of us. I hated having to say that, but it was true. Not Tom, Tobias said. The thing that lives in his head, but not Tom. Never Tom. I sighed. I had this dream. I almost stopped talking right there because I felt like a fool for bringing it up. I know this is stupid. I know dreams don't mean anything, but I've had this dream a couple of times. So, tell us, Rachel prodded. Okay, but don't laugh. In the dream, I'm in my tiger morph, and I'm stalking Tom, following him, on his trail. I'm I'm feeling the tiger's eagerness. You know, that predator feeling, the hunger, the desire to kill. Tobias turned his head away. I knew why. Tobias was a predator now. He felt that eagerness, that killing desire, every day. It still bothered him, I guess. He had always been such a gentle guy, back when he was fully human. Anyway, in the dream, I'm hunting my own brother. Only when I get close, he turns around and it isn't Tom anymore. It's. I stopped myself before I finished the sentence. I'd already said too much. I just don't want anything to happen to Tom, I said lamely. It's it's not just about what might happen if there's a fight. Look, I think Tom is important to this whole hospital plan somehow. I think maybe he's in charge. If we manage to stop this thing, who knows what they'll do to Tom? I mean, maybe Visser 3 just kills Tom's Yerk. But we've all seen Visser 3 in action. He likes to make examples out of anyone who fails him. He could kill Tom. Rachel whistled softly. If we succeed, Tom fails. If he fails, Visser 3 may kill him. That's about the way it is, yeah, I said. So, what do we do? Marco asked. We forget this mission, Cassie suggested. And leave the Yerks in control of a hospital? A little factory for making controllers? I countered. Why? Because my brother may be hurt? Yes, Cassie said simply. I hesitated. I wanted to agree. But how could I justify backing off for selfish reasons? We don't have to make a final decision now, Marco said. We can go in, learn what they're up to, decide then what we do about it. I met Marco's gaze. I wondered what he was thinking about. Only Marco and I knew about his mother. To everyone else, she was dead. Sorry, to everyone else, she's dead. Only the two of us know that she's really a controller, that her body is the host body of Visser 1. Marco, of all people, understood what I was dealing with. He had given me a way out of deciding. Yeah, I said, nodding at my friend. Marco's right. This is just a spy mission. There's plenty of time to decide what to do when we know more about what they're up to. I should have felt relieved. I didn't. Okay. And that is the end of chapter 6, so we can pick back up with chapter 7 next week. And pardon my eyeballs were not at their most cooperative today. But thank you for playing Animorphs with me. Good night.